My name is Jamin. I'm your first friend in Alaska. I'm also an associate real estate broker in South Central Alaska, and today we're going to talk about why it is so difficult for people to find good places to live in Alaska. And this is kind of an interesting one. Had to really kind of dive deep to kind of figure this one out. But I'm really excited about the content we're able to come up with. Before we get started though, do make sure you get this video a like, subscribe, do all the good stuff, and let's jump into it. Okay, so what we're going to look at first is we're going to look at the different regions in Alaska, why it's hard to find a good region that you really like, and then we're going to take a look at the specific towns to try to help you figure out why it's difficult to find a good town. And then we're going to break it down even further to help you find like the best house. So it's going to be pretty comprehensive. So let's go ahead and jump into it first, looking at the different regions. So first thing I would say is that a lot of people have this image of what Alaska is like in their head, and they don't realize just how diverse the topography and the entire landscape and just how different each one of these regions are. We've got rainforest, we've got tundra, we've got absolute mountainous alpines, we've got like ocean communities, we've got like villages out in the middle of who the heck knows where. So you get all these different regions, so there's really no such thing as having, the quintessential Alaska community. It is really and truly all over the place, and unfortunately all the vlogs out there and all the reality TV shows not doing us a whole lot of favors, because they make everything look very, very uniform as just being this absolutely extreme icebox that we all live in, and that's not really the truth at all. So you just have to first off figure out what region is going to be appealing, and not just appealing, but which one is appealing specifically to you. Like, we can all agree, hey, this is a real beautiful area, and that's great for a day. Is this is this a region or an area that you would like to live in? And that's really what you're going to have to figure out, preferably in visits while you're here. I really cannot emphasize this enough, that just because you like the idea of a region does not necessarily mean that is going to be the best place for you to live. It might be a great day trip, might not be a good long-term solution for you. For instance, like, I may like the idea of being a Navy SEAL, I do not really feel motivated enough to go through buds or do everything else that's required. So just kind of know there's a difference between an area that's appealing to you and an area that's, I guess, appealing enough that you're willing to make all the sacrifices it takes to live there. Another reason that it's so difficult to pick a good region for people is that they make decisions based solely off of their impressions online without actually coming here to physically tour the region and kind of spend some time here. Now, I've talked about this in other videos, but if you're trying to just get a good feel for what an area is like, there's really no replacing just coming here, getting an Airbnb, not a hotel, because you're going to be getting the real touristy experience. Get an Airbnb in kind of an area or a neighborhood you think you might, you could actually see yourself living in, and see what it's actually like living here, at least for a couple days, preferably for about a week. And another thing that I see that makes it difficult is a lot of people will pick like the prime time of the year to come up here and visit, and they really don't come up during the winter time. Now, it is a luxury if you can come up here to Alaska at different times of the year, just to make sure that this is, the place that you want to be. And yeah, great if you can do it. I guess it's not 100% necessary, but it is awesome if you can do that, because then that really shows you Alaska at its best, and Alaska maybe not at its worst, because some people really do like the winter time, but not at the best winter or summertime, I guess I should say. All right, moving on here, let's talk about the specific towns and why it's difficult for a lot of people to pick a specific town that they want to settle down in. Well, first off, there are a lot of towns. Well, relatively speaking. In Alaska, our towns are actually like miles and miles, 30, 40 minutes apart from each other. And that's just not the case that you get in the lower 48. Like, I drive down in Florida and it's like, okay, we just went from this town to the other one. It's like, it all looks exactly the same. How would we even know we just crossed the boundary? And that's not the issue you have up here in Alaska. Everything is really spaced out, and that gives a lot of opportunities for these towns to really develop their own culture and kind of their own vibe. So you really have to pay attention when you're picking which town you want to go to and really try to spend some time in each one of these communities because they really are unique, and you just can't really tell what it's exactly like just by watching a few videos online. Another thing you really have to take into consideration, and that makes it kind of difficult to decide where to live for towns, is you're looking at things like conveniences, healthcare, job opportunities, and a lot of people, when they're making decisions, like they're making decisions for what works right now, and they might not be making decisions about what's going to be right in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And, that's perfectly fine. But for people who want to be up here long term, they do think, hey, what about the healthcare? Is that going to be okay for me long term? Yes, no, okay. Well, if it's not, then we probably need to look somewhere else. But have those internal discussions with yourself and really kind of ask yourself, okay, it's okay for right now, for the short term, even the intermediate, like the next 5 years or so. Is that going to be okay after that? Or are you okay just saying, hey, we're just making decisions for what's good for the next 5 years, and we'll make a decision in 5 years if it's still not good? Like, that works for a lot of people too. Another reason that really makes it difficult for a lot of people to decide where they want to settle down is that the schools can be a little squirrely in trying to figure out where you want to put your kids, because everyone is going to say, oh, the schools are absolutely awesome, and I absolutely love it at this school. Like, I've found not a whole lot of parents are willing to say, yeah, this place sucks, like, get your kids out of Gotham. Like, not a whole lot of people are willing to say that. And yes, you do get those scores online, and there's some element of that not being very subjective and that being very cut and dry, but most people aren't making decisions strictly off of scores. So it can be a little difficult to pick the right town for your kids and their education based off of the school. So that's just something else that makes it a bit more challenging. Okay, let's take a break here real quick. Just kind of a quick reminder, I do host a monthly meetup for people who are looking at moving up here. And, I guess people who are currently living up here. The month, at least in August, in which I'm shooting this, we're actually going to be going out blueberry picking and in a couple weeks here. If that's something that would interest you, then do feel free to jump into our meetup group. The Facebook group for that is going to be in the description section down below. It's a private group. Do not let a bunch of random people in there. So if that's something that you're interested in, make sure you join the group just so you can get all those updates. And also, if you'd like a copy of my relocation guide, for those of you who are looking at making a move up here in the near future, do make sure you reach out to me. Again, on the website, in the description section down below. Register to the website, put relocation guide in the comment section, and I'll make sure to email that over to you. Okay, let's go and finish up today's video. Okay, so we've talked about why it's difficult finding a good region to live in. We've talked about why it's difficult to find a good town to live in. Now let's talk about why it's difficult sometimes to find a good house to live in. One of the first things I've seen is that everybody wants a good deal. Okay, that is just baseline installed in everybody. Everybody wants to feel like they got a good deal, and all fine and good. The problem is, for some people, it gets to the point where getting a good deal is more important than actually finding a home. There's some give and take sometimes, especially in these smaller markets, and sometimes you might not at the time feel like you got the best deal ever. And this just eats some people alive, and for other people, they're just happy to be in a house. And that's just something to be aware of. Am I trying to get a house, and that's the most important thing? Or am I trying to feel like I got a great deal? And that's the most important thing. Okay, and kind of on that note, I kind of alluded to this before, but one of the big difficulties right now of finding a home in Alaska is there's not a whole lot of inventory. Most other places in the U.S., this is also the case, and it's because everybody refinanced or bought a couple of years ago, and the interest rates are sitting right at about 2.5%, 3%, and you can imagine not a whole lot of sellers are willing to get off of those homes. So that creates a shortage, and we're really not building as much as you could in other places, and so that's, we've kind of got a shortage that is pretty hard for us to get out of. Another challenge for a lot of home buyers up here that we didn't have about a decade ago is everybody's got like their search app up, and they get immediate notifications when something pops onto the market that is what they're looking for. So Used to be that, you get like a really proactive real estate agent, buyer agent, and something would pop up. They'd notify you immediately and you'd be ahead of everybody. That really doesn't exist anymore just because everybody's getting an instant notification, and it doesn't matter how proactive you are not going to beat like 50 other people checking their phones at the same time. So yeah, that's I guess a blessing because you get notified immediately, but so does everybody else as well. A big reason that a lot of people struggle with purchasing a home is some people just really don't want to compete. And unfortunately, in a market like this, competition, if it's a good home, is just not really much of an option. It used to be you could find a good house and it would sit on the market for a long time and you could come in and negotiate and all that and get, a pretty good deal. Those days are pretty much gone. If it is a good house priced pretty accurately to where it needs to be, chances are you're going to be running into competition. Some people can't handle that. They don't want to compete at all. And so they end up just looking for a lot of homes that just not a whole lot of people really like or want. And there's probably a good reason for that. So while I'm not saying let's just go, Valhalla style, just rushing into every competition we possibly can, I'm also saying let's not be so afraid of it that, it's a great house, meets everything that you want, and there's some other people interested in it, and it's like, okay, well, we're going to give up right now and go elsewhere. That's your choice, and I'd rather fail at doing something I would want to do than I would want to be successful at purchasing something that I ultimately just don't want. So it's going to be your choice, but just know that that's kind of a difficulty for a lot of people, is just not willing to compete in a market where there's not a lot of inventory. Oh man, this one's heartbreaking, and that is finding the right property, like the right house, absolutely perfect, but it's in the wrong area. I mean, this is just absolutely painful, where it's like checks all the boxes for you, right price point, the yard's great, whatever it is you're into, RV parking, but it's about 30 minutes away from where you wanted it to be, or it's in an area that's just a little too loud, too close to the airport, whatever. That can be really heartbreaking for a lot of people. So yeah, I'm going to put that down as a definite difficulty for some people. All right, last but not least, I'm going to say one of the biggest difficulties for a lot of people is that what they're looking for is almost non-existent. Like they're saying, okay, I want a property that's $250,000 in Eagle River on a full acre, and it's about 2,000 square feet and built in the early 2000s. That pretty much doesn't exist. And the challenge for some people is they get an image in their head for what they're looking for, and it may exist, it may not, but more importantly, they become really rigid on what it is that they're looking for. There are standards, there are absolute must-haves, but for a lot of people, they end up walking away over stuff that may or may not be, a must-have that they listed out at the very beginning. And obviously, this is kind of this is an organic process where, you find out once you're kind of get a little bit more battle-tested in negotiating, it's like, okay, well, I guess that's really not that important to us after all. Or, hey, I guess the size of the yard is a lot more important to us than we thought because we were willing to walk away from this last deal over that entirely. So just know that having a little fluidity there is going to really be a good thing. Be disciplined and kind of have those things listed out ahead of time, the must-haves, the likes and all that, just for your own sake and the organization. But just know that there's going to need to be a bit of flexibility as the situations arise. All right, in conclusion, I guess the advice I would give you is just leaving you with the peace of knowing there's no such thing as perfection. There's only trade-offs, okay? It's a very rare person that can find, the perfect house in the town exactly that they wanted, in the exact region that they wanted as well. It's kind of rare that the house checks every single box and fulfills every single dream that they could possibly have. It's pretty rare that you find something that does all of that. Not impossible, but it is pretty difficult to find something that checks all those boxes. So might work for you, but just have some flexibility there and just know that, hey, there's going to be some trade-offs, and that is perfectly fine. I've seen a lot of people buy and sell homes over the years, and the most happiest are the ones that are kind of going into it with the mindset of, we're going to be grateful for what we can find, and we're going to make sure that, we're good stewards and everything. We're not going to just rush into anything, but also we're realists and we know that no house is going to be perfect, and they're going to be content wherever they're at. So just my 2 cents there. Hope it's been useful. Thanks for hanging out with me. If you have questions, reach out to me on my website down below. And see you next time.